I don't know about you, unless you've been living underneath a rock somewhere, you've noticed that gas prices have gone up, grocery bills have increased, and just about everything you buy is more expensive now. And it's so easy to feel hopeless and as if we have no control over it. So, what can we do to help us with that question? I asked my friend and financial coach, Alissa Locke from the Money Mentor Group, to give us some answers. Welcome, Alissa, to the new mid.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
Well, I have to admit, the other day I was really anxious filling up my gas tank as I was watching the price go up and up and up. And I know there's a lot of us out there that are feeling that way. And I think we all need a financial coach to help us figure out what to do. But before we jump into that and get your wise advice, I want to know, what made you decide to become a financial coach?
Well, it really was from my personal kind of money journey that as I entered into my 50s, kind of um, compelled me to become a financial coach. In my early 30s, found myself in a situation where I was a divorced single mom who had left my marriage with $60,000 of debt. And I can remember like it was yesterday, laying in bed at night, staring at the ceiling, thinking, how did I ever get in this situation? My parents taught me really good money habits. Like I knew better, but I had all this debt and I was living paycheck to paycheck. And I had this aha moment that if I don't work on my relationship with my money and start to lead life a little bit differently, I'd never get out of that predicament. And so slowly, I paid off my debt. I became a real student of personal finance and really took control of my financial situation. So much so that I was able to retire in my early 50s, or as I like to say, become work optional, uh, because retirement was not for me. And when I retired from the insurance and financial services industry, I wanted to help other people, especially women, who might feel defeated or out of control or hopeless when it came to their finances. I wanted to help them feel empowered and confident about their financial future. And so I became a financial coach.
That is great. Well, we could all use some confidence right now with our finances. I want to ask you something that you said that's interesting to me is that you learned how to appreciate your money. And I've heard that before. And it's funny because my little one, she'll get a gift of $5 or a gift of $20 and she'll just leave it around. And I'll say to her, Sienna, you need to appreciate this money. But, it is a piece of paper, right? It is a piece of paper. So I've heard these things about people having a nice wallet or having a couple $100 bills in your purse or on you. What is that you appreciate money? What is that for you?
Mindset is so connected to behavior when it comes to our money. We all have what I call a money story, which are the messages that we heard around money as we were growing up. Messages that we heard from our parents, from our peers, from our environment, potentially even messages from our culture or our religion. And they form how we relate and behave with our money and our mindset around our money as adults. And so for me, when I was growing up, I heard constant messages of, we can't afford it, we can't afford it, we can't afford it. And it wasn't that we were poor, we were solidly middle class, but my parents were extremely frugal and they were big savers. So when I became an adult and I started earning money, because I had felt deprived as a child, I spent. as a way to make myself feel smarter, more successful, more beautiful, like a better mother. And that's how I got myself in that situation. And it was coming to that realization that I needed to work on my relationship with money and appreciate my money as the tool that it is that can get me where I want to go in life long term. That was really a game changer for me.
That's interesting because we do all have our upbringings and what we do think about money. My father's mantra was, it doesn't matter how much you make, it's how much you save. you know
Yeah.
and debt is bad, any debt is bad. That whole stigmatism behind it. And it's interesting because I'm raising my kids that if it's something that maybe we can't afford, we use the language, we are choosing not to buy that.
I love it.
Instead of I can't afford it, we are choosing not to buy that right now. Maybe we'll buy it down the road. But I like that idea. Here we are in midlife, and I know we're going to start talking about the high prices and what we can do about it. But let's stick a little bit longer on this mindset concept. Being in midlife, we know that, this is our second half, and it can be a little anxious about our money. So, how do we get that I'm choosing not to buy this right now? How do we get that positive mindset just around money?
This is such I'm so glad you brought this up because I work with so many midlife people who say to me, oh, I should have started saving earlier, or why did I get myself into all this debt, or I'll never be able to retire because I just don't have enough. They are so filled with regret that regret and disappointment, and they're really beating themselves up, right? About what they consider money mistakes. And one thing I kind of coach them on is to say, make sure when you say these things to yourself, you add the word yet onto the end of it. So for people who say, I haven't saved, right? Or I haven't saved enough.
Enough.
I say, okay, now add the word yet. So I haven't saved enough yet. Or if they say, I don't know anything about money, I say, okay, now add that word yet. I don't know anything about money yet. Because by adding that word, it suddenly changes that negative into something that's optimistic and hopeful. And that's half the battle, right? Having the mindset of, well, maybe I didn't do what I should have done, or I, wished I have done, but I start today on the right path. It's like any journey, any transformative journey, whether it's a weight loss journey or a health journey or a relationship journey, start today. And just the act of starting today makes you feel better.
Yeah, I love that idea. I haven't lost the weight yet.
Right.
Okay, let's bring this back to why you are here. There is so much noise out there with inflation, mortgages going up, gas prices, all of that. Can you give us some insight into why is this happening?
Well, you're right. This is a really scary time, a really wonky time. So I can tell you what I have heard or learned about why we are in this period of inflation. But I do have to say, I think it's a combination of many things that has created this perfect storm. It really is not just one thing or two things. So, we had the pandemic, right? And we think about the early stages of the pandemic where everything was shutting down, from businesses to restaurants to jobs, to schools. Everything was just shutting down, right? And that created this huge ripple effect, right? Of people getting behind on their bills, people increasing debt, people leaving jobs because maybe they were afraid, to go to a job where they had a lot of person-to-person contact. So the pandemic, of course, had a huge ripple effect. Then we have all these supply chain issues, right? It's funny. I went to order something the other day, and I literally had to, I was ordering it on Amazon, and I literally had to pick like the sixth item because the other five were sold out. And it was like, not a weird thing, so we were having all these supply chain issues, right? So that's, the other part of this perfect storm. We actually also have a lot of environmental things going on: fires, floods, hurricanes, tornadoes, and that has a huge impact on food prices, right? We're all feeling that at the grocery store. There's a lot of crops, right, that are being impacted. The cost of fertilizer and seeds way up, right? So that is another.
Yeah, and not to mention a war.
Yeah, I was going to say a war. I mean, that has a huge impact. I saw in the news yesterday that Ukraine actually supplies something like 22% of the world's wheat.
Wow.
So,
Yeah.
it's just all of these things, kind of coming together at the same time.
Like a perfect storm.
Yeah, exactly.
So what can we do about it?
Well, I would say that the first thing we need to do is to become better stewards of our money. And what I mean by that is when times are good, we tend to be kind of loosey goosey with our money, right? Like, we're on our phones ordering stuff on Amazon, right? And we don't think twice about it. Like, oh, it's $10. We're grabbing a cup of coffee at Starbucks. I mean, even that went up, right? Like, we are, I don't know, tired, and we say, oh, let's just go eat out, right? So when things are free flowing, we tend to just, like I say, be a little more relaxed. But I don't think anybody, I don't care how much you earn, can be in a position today of not tracking their money in some way. And I say tracking your money because for me, the word budgeting brings up negative feelings. Like for me, I mean, not everybody, some people, when they hear the word budget, they feel empowered, right? For me, when somebody says budgeting, I feel restricted and deprived and like, oh God, she's going to tell me I got to track every penny. And that does not sound fun. So I like having a spending and savings plan, because somehow for me, a spending and savings plan sounds, oh, great, right? I can do that. So really just being intentional with your money, having a plan with your money, I think right now is one of the most important things that you can do. As a money coach, one of the activities I do with my clients is to just look at where they're spending and where they're saving and help them to make choices with their money so that they feel more confident.
You can't go wrong with paying attention to where you spend your money.
Exactly. Right.
It's that you can't go wrong with that. So in midlife, we might be near-ish to retiring or, trying something new, maybe 10, 15 years. What should we be worried about our 401k? How much we're saving? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, absolutely. These are crucial years when it comes to saving for retirement. These last, 20 years of your career, very, very crucial. So obviously you want to try to save and invest as much as you possibly can. And I really love the concept of paying yourself first. And that's a concept where you have the money taken out of your paycheck before you ever see it. It's automatic. It comes out of your paycheck. That's one of the beautiful things about a 401k plan. You can set it up that way. And If you are not employed in a company that has a 401k plan, or you are self-employed, there are a myriad of different options that you can set up for yourself that will act in a very similar way. But I think the other piece of this is that we need to, in my opinion, think about retirement in a little bit of a different way. What used to mean retirement was I stop work completely, like I'm done, right? And I don't work anymore, and I travel, I enjoy life, I pursue hobbies, right? Whatever. It's my non working period of life. And I think today people are living so long, and people are, healthy so often, well into their, 70s, 80s, 90s, even, that for many of us, we choose to think of this retirement period as I said before, work optional. So we work at something we enjoy, we work on our own schedule, we work how and when we want. Because think about it, if you can supplement your retirement with $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 a month, that's a great thing. That takes a lot of the pressure right off of you. So I think a combination of both of those things would be, a very good strategy for a lot of people.
Well, it's nice because you will continue to be vibrant. It's important that you keep your mind active, you have a passion for something, a purpose, and you can use the skills that had in your first career to do something, which is fantastic. But how about this crazy stock market? I know you cannot give advice, and we're not telling people what to do, but we can at least expose and give some thoughts on it because it is erratic.
Yes, it is. And from everything I've been hearing and reading from the experts out there, the experts are saying it will continue to be volatile for, certainly the near future. And that can be a very scary thing for people who are currently invested in the stock market or are continuing to invest in the stock market. Nobody likes to look at their statements and month after month see those numbers go down, right? We have to understand, though, that one of the most important basic principles about investing in the stock market is that you invest long term. So, not money you're going to need right away, but money you're going to need many, many years in the future, because that gives your money time to recover from this, wonky period, this crazy volatile period. It gives you time for your money to recover. And many financial experts would say this is a great time to invest in the stock market because many stocks have lost so much value that they're, on sale, right?
Yeah, you hear that. It's a fire sale.
Yes. Yes.
I'm like, I just want it to be. I know it's kind of crazy. I do feel a lot poorer today than I did 2, 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
If someone is listening to this and hasn't been paying much attention to their money, and they're in midlife now, and now they're kind of going, "Uh-oh, I don't know what to do yet." Um, where should they start?
Well, I would say, in addition to tracking your money, so that because we spend money that we don't even realize. And I'll give you an example. I was working with a client who, as we went through her spending, she had totally forgotten about two subscription services that she pays for every month. It just shows up on her credit card, and she's like, I don't even use those. So tracking your money is one thing. The other thing that I think is really important is for everyone to have an emergency fund. So an emergency fund, let me just define that, because some people, I think, don't really understand what an emergency fund is. An emergency fund is a pool of money that is kept in a separate bank account from your main checking account, so that you're not tempted to pull money from it every time you need a couple bucks, right? And I always tell my clients to think of this money as sacred. You have to make sure you don't touch it, because an emergency will happen. We don't know when, we don't know what that emergency will look like, but it will happen. And the true definition of an emergency is an expense that you never could have predicted. So, for example, let's say your sister is getting married next year and you need money for the dress and the airfare and the gift. That's not part of your regular budget. It's not in your regular spending and savings plan. And a lot of people might be tempted to, oh, let me use my emergency fund for that. That's not an emergency. Your sister was getting married for a year, right? Or, Christmas, right? Not part of your regular budget, right? And so people might be tempted to pull from their emergency fund. I call those kinds of things budget busters. So budget busters are different than emergencies, because a budget buster is something that isn't part of your regular, spending. Maybe it's an annual expense you forget about, or all of a sudden your kid is trying a new sport and you got to pay the fee. So, right, those are budget busters, but they're not emergencies. And we need to make that distinction in our mind. So always having an emergency fund is super important, because if you don't, I guarantee those things like you need 4 new tires, or, you have a medical bill, those are emergencies. If you don't have an emergency fund, it's just going to end up on your credit card and will cost you more.
Right. You know what I love when you were talking about your client who had subscriptions? I learned this trick the hard way, but if you cancel your credit card and then, of course you get a new one, all these subscriptions are going to pop up, because they're going to be like, oh, your credit card has run out. And you'll be
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know I was paying for that. I mean, unfortunately, I had fraud on my credit card, but a couple subscriptions popped up and I was like, oh yeah, no, I'm not renewing those.
So common, and we used to think of subscriptions as like magazine subscriptions, right? But now they're, things like services on our, laptops or phones that we subscribe to, right? Or, a channel, we've got Netflix and Hulu and Amazon Prime and all those things. Maybe there's a channel that we subscribe to that we forgot about. So, it's even things like there's this, a bunch of my friends were doing this wine subscription where every 3 months I would get a new case of wine and I could try these different wines. And after a while, I'm like, I really don't drink that much wine. Like, this is worth it.
Oh my
So,
God.
I canceled it. So, you just really have to be careful and intentional about what you're spending. Somebody, I heard this phrase, I did not make it up. I heard this phrase where someone said, you can afford anything, just not everything.
I like that. That's a good one. I need to put that on a bumper sticker. Alissa, this has been amazing. How can people get in contact with you?
They can take a look at our website, which is www.moneymentorgroup.com. And on the website, there's all kinds of courses and webinars and freebies. And there's a contact us button. So that would be the best place for them to go.
Great. And we'll be sure to have it in the details. Well, thank you so much for all of your wonderful wisdom, Alissa. Thank you
For having me.